Welcome to Surrender School.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start the course, and the course is called Making the Enneagram Easy. It is based on the book, mostly on the book, The Enneagram Made Easy by Barron and Weigel, I think the name is. And it is kind of a fun, lighthearted book. And I literally have taken pictures of the book and put it in the, and I didn't make them fancy because I want it to be very clear that I did not make this up. This came from somewhere else. And all we're doing is going over it together. Okay. The goal of this class is to help people determine the Enneagram type they were born as. You do not change Enneagram type. You change your awareness of what type you are often, but you do not change your type. You were born a specific type, and you will always be that type. Your true self is that type. The reason that we want you to understand your Enneagram type is so that you can understand what is causing your pain and use that knowledge to live as free as possible. Because we really do need to, we have so many blind spots, and I know this of myself. I have so many blind spots just in order to survive, I have that, right? So, and our goal is to be happy, joyous, and free. I do believe very strongly free comes first, and then happy, joyous follows that. You don't start out happy and, well, I guess when you're born, you start out happy, joyous, and free. But then all this shit happens, and we're not after that. So anyway, but that is the goal of this class, to help you live as free as humanly possible. All right. So once again, it is unfolding the types. This week, we are going to be talking about the gut center, which are types 8, 9, and 1. And there'll be I'm just going to cover some things about those types. And then we're also going to have people share on those types. So I'm really excited if there are those types here that can talk about how they were like that. And then once again, we're skipping next week. Then December 7th, we're going to be talking about the heart types, which are 2, 3, and 4. And then December 14th, we're going to be talking about the head types, which are 5, 6, and 7. And then after that, on the December 21st, because it's so close to Christmas, we're going to do a game day. I'm going to create a game, and we'll play games. And we'll play a game or two, which should be fun. That is, unless everybody's dropped out by then, which we won't play a game, but that's my plan right now. So hopefully. Okay. So some basic things to keep in mind. These sessions, there is 3 sessions in a game day. It is to help us prepare for the supercharger recovery. Some people went through the triple E12 step all the way through, right? Some people are like researching the Enneagram. Some people have known it for years. Some are brand new to it. And what we're trying to do is get kind of everybody generally on the same page, so that when we are working on the Enneagram by type, you have at least a little bit of knowledge about what type you are, so that you can answer the questions for that type, is what we really want to do. Now, this course, these 3 weeks that we're doing this, are really focusing on how you show up in the world, and probably more specifically, how you showed up in your 20s, how you showed up when you were a young person. Because one of the things that happen is, as we work our program, right, there's all kinds of things happening to soften us and right? It's like before we come into, at least my story is, before I came into 12-step, it was everybody else's fault. Any bad thing that happened was everybody else's fault. And then I came into the 12-step, and then of course everything was my fault, right? And so now I'm at the point where blame is beside the point, right? But if I were trying to look at myself today, after all the growth from the 12-step and so forth, I'm not sure I could really identify my type. I probably could, because I'm a type 8, which is very obvious, which I'll talk about in a little while. But anyway, a lot of times what will happen is, where we sit today, it's like, what am I like? So this is how you show up in the world, and specifically how you showed up in the world before recovery or early in recovery. That's what you want to look at, because that's how you get to really lock in what your type is. The reason we want you to lock in what your type is because once again, when we do this stuff, the supercharger recovery, it's going to be amazing to you, the kinds of questions. I mean, these questions zoom right into who you are. They're amazing questions, I have to say. They came from Joy, so they're amazing. Okay, and then once again, the source material is The Enneagram Made Easy, is the book. All right. How this all ties to the 12-step program is basically, once again, they're Enneagram types, but this, I want you to take a look like from pre-program. And then in January, we start the deep work. And that's really what this is for. When I started putting it together, we called it a prequel, right? It's like before you do all the other work, but a lot of you have already done the other work. So, which I really appreciate you coming, because you're going to be the ones that share. And when it's time to share, what I'm going to talk about is sharing in the way that we do in a 12-step. What, like it says on page 53 of the big book, right? It says what we, in a general way, right? What we were like, what happened, and what we're like now. And that's what we're going to share on because, right? Because we've recovered. All right. And once again, just a little bit about the Enneagram. The concepts are very old, like centuries old, and they're archetypal, which means it doesn't matter what era of time, it doesn't matter where in the world you've lived or grown or anything. These 9 types show up in every society. They show up in every society. The typology, so the diagram that you see is about a century old. Gurdjieff is the one that basically first put it there. And anyway, so it's about a century old. I think it's been found older than that, but put together the way that we see it today, it's about a century old. And the Enneagram is descriptive, not prescriptive. It doesn't tell you how you should be. It basically tells you how you are, right? It tells you you're wired this way. So these are some of the behaviors because of the way you're wired. And I really like that. So if you think about, there are generally 9 different types, and you're one of those 9 types. Now, as you worked in recovery, you're pulling in some of the other type things. You just automatically will. In defense of yourself as a child, you'll pull some of that in, right? As you're a teenager and shit happens to you, you pull some of the other stuff in. But you were born a certain type and you will always be that type. All right. So this actually came in this morning, which is why I put it on the side here. It was part of, I get an Enneagram thought sent to me every day, and this came from the Enneagram reading today. Each type unconsciously tends to train others to see us in a certain way. And what decides how we train other people to see us is the way we're wired, right? I want people to see me as a badass. I want people to see me as strong, and right. Where a 2 wants to see, they want people to see them as kind and loving, right? We have different things that we are training others to see us a certain way. And that is tied to your Enneagram type also. All right, I'm going to do a quick, I did this as part of the other class, but I really want to share this for those that haven't been through this before, just really quickly, my understanding, a simple understanding of the way the Enneagram works and how I use it in my 12-step work. Okay, so you're a little bitty baby, and this little bitty baby is laying in bed, and they wet their diaper, and their mom doesn't pick them up in 2 seconds flat. That's when it starts, right? So you're what, a day old. And basically that baby is, they don't have language yet, obviously, but they come with a certain reaction to it, right? So for an 8, I would think, right, I have to handle this myself. A 1 would think, well, this is just perfect. How can I be perfect when I have a wet diaper, right? And the two is, oh, they must not love me. You get the idea. Each of the different types, I won't go through it right now, but each of the different types reacts, even that young, differently. And so what happens is we begin our ego, because we all have egos, and I don't think the ego is a bad thing. I think the ego is necessary. We wouldn't have even survived childhood without it. So the ego begins to build a wall, right? It builds this wall that defends us from bad feelings, from danger sometimes, from abuse sometimes, right? We build this wall up, and the wall is built up according to our type. The way we view the world is how we build this wall. That's not a problem. I think that's good. And as a child, it's absolutely necessary. The problem is that we begin to believe that that wall that our ego has built is us. We begin to believe that we are that personality. We go through much of our life believing we are our personality. And in reality, we're not our personality. The ego has built up this wall that blocks us from that, right? And so what the 12 step has done is it cracks the shell of that, right? That shell of that ego, it cracks it, and we start seeing it. That's really what the 4th step is about. Actually, the whole program is about that, but certainly the 4th step, because that's when we start seeing, wait a minute, even though I'm acting like this, I'm not like this. This is in reaction to something, right? Okay, so I want to, and once again, simple, basic. There are, like, I don't know, thousands of pages written about this, and I just covered it in a minute. Okay, all right. This is my recovery journey, and I'm going to guess yours looks somewhat like this. All right. When I was born with a true self, and that true self in my opinion, in my view, came from the mind of God. I was this perfect little baby, and I came from the mind of God. Because because shit happens, it just does. I mean, all of it. Michael Naylor calls it the catastrophe of your childhood, right? You'll have a catastrophe or 2 or 3 or 12, and your ego creates this personality in defense of you. And I'm calling that the false self. And very often that's what, in a lot of different religions, in a lot of different spiritual studies, they talk about the true self and the false self. So the false self is that ego structure that is built to defend you. That's its purpose. And I live with that. But what I realized as we go through this is it's causing my suffering. And I'm suffering from this. In my case, because I'm an Enneagram 8, I was getting in people's face all the time. It just like, and it was like, nobody else is doing this. Why am I doing this? It caused my suffering, and it brought me to my knees, and I began my 12-step journey. So I do the 12-step work, and notice the dark kind of red in the middle. That's where my suffering is. And I am coming out of suffering, but I've never gotten in when I've done my 12-step work, and I am a big book fan for sure. I love the big book, and I think that Bill W. was completely inspired by God. But as I look at this, it's like I'm doing the 12-step work, and I just every time, the first 3 times, great. After that, every time I work myself and working the steps, I just hated myself more and more. And so what I discovered is I started working on the Enneagram, which is what we're introducing here. And I started working on the Enneagram. And I mean, the only sentence I can say is it's like I went, oh, I'm wired this way. That's why. That is why. And then, of course, when I study, then I realize that that's my ego defending me. And I get to now return to my true self. And there are times I actually just feel like that little baby. And my family tells me that I was a happy baby. And I believe that because I am a happy person. And some of that is because I'm free. And, right? A matter of fact, a big chunk of that is because I'm free. So this is kind of what we go through. And you're just now, if you're just now studying the Enneagram, you get a chance to look at the Enneagram and take a look at yourself for a couple of reasons. First of all, it allows you to be a better friend, wife, mother, whatever it is, whatever role you play. You can be better because you show up as more truly yourself. And for me, at least, I get to relax into myself instead of always, striving to be something. I get to relax into my true self. It also allows me to, when I am relaxed into my true self, is when I can hear the voice of God. I don't hear an actual voice. Some people do. I don't. But certainly when I'm half sleeping and half awake is when I am most susceptible to hearing the voice of my higher power. So, and that happens almost every day now. And it used to I used to strive, and now I don't need to strive. So anyway, something to think about. And then I get to return to my true self, which is very, very comfortable, and I love it. Okay, now we're going to do something really quick. What I'd like you to do is write on a piece of paper ABC with a line after it and XYZ with a line after it. So grab your piece of paper and do this. And I'm just trusting that you are because I can't see anyone. It's all good. Let me see if I can open this up. Maybe I can see a few people participating. I hope so. Okay. All right. So everybody has everything written? ABC, XYZ? Cool. All right. So this is what I want you to do. I am going to I'm going to read paragraphs, and you're going to read them with me, but we're going to read paragraphs. And if you've taken this test already, just take it again. It's all good. You're going to weight the paragraphs in each group. So I'm going to show you the first group, and you're going to weight the paragraphs. A 3 is what best describes you. A 1 is what least describes you, and then the 2 is the other one, right? So you're looking for the of these 3 paragraphs, what describes me the best. I did this with someone, and it says weight and a number, and she's I was asking her to put her weight down. I'm not. I'm asking her to put her. I don't care what your weight is. Anyway, so I've slowed down to read this before I put this up, but she saw weight and she said, my current weight. I'm like, no, your weight of the paragraphs, 1, 2, or 3 is all you're writing down. Okay, so I'm going to read these out loud. Read them with me if you would. So for A, if this is like you, it's going to be 3. If it's not, don't put anything yet. Okay. I have tended to be fairly independent and assertive. I felt that my life works best when you meet it head on. I set my own goals, get involved, and want to make things happen. I don't like sitting around. I want to achieve something big and have an impact. I don't necessarily seek confrontations, but I don't let people push me around either. Most of the time, I know what I want and I go for it. I tend to work hard and play hard. If that sounds just like you, put a 3 there. All right. Here's the second one. This is B. And if it doesn't sound like you, don't put anything yet because you don't know if it's a 1 or 2. Okay, here's B. I have tended to be quiet and am used to being on my own. I usually don't draw much attention to myself socially, and it's generally unusual for me to assert myself all that forcefully. I don't feel comfortable taking the lead or being as competitive as others. Many would probably say that I'm something of a dreamer. A lot of my excitement goes on in my imagination. I can be quite content without feeling I have to be active all the time. If that sounds exactly like you, put a 3, otherwise just pend it for a minute. And here is C. I have tended to be extremely responsible and dedicated. I feel terrible if I don't keep my commitments and do what's expected of me. I want people to know that I'm there for them and that I'll do what I believe is best for them. I've often made great personal sacrifices for the sake of others, whether they know it or not. I often don't take adequate care of myself. I do the work that needs to be done and relax and do what I want if there's time left. And if that sounds like you, put a 3 there. So each of these should have a 1, 2, or 3. The one that sounds most like you should be 3. The one that sounds least like you should be 1. And then the other one is 2. Everybody good? All right, so that's A, B, and C. Now we're going to go on to X, Y, and Z. So here is X. I am a person who usually maintains a positive outlook and feels that things will work out for the best. I can usually find something to be enthusiastic about and different ways to occupy myself. I like being around people and helping others be happy. I enjoy sharing my own well being with them. I don't always feel great, but I generally try not to show it. However, keeping a positive frame of mind has sometimes meant that I've put off dealing with my own problems for too long. Okay, so that's X. If that sounds just like you, put a 3 there. All right, now let's move on to Y. I am a person who has strong feelings about things. Most people can tell when I'm upset about something. I can be guarded with people, but I'm more sensitive than I let on. I want to know where I stand with others and who and what I can count on. It's pretty clear to most people where they stand with me. When I'm upset about something, I want others to respond and get as worked up as I am. I know the rules, but I don't want people telling me what to do. I want to decide for myself. If that sounds like you, put a 3 there. If it sounds just like you. And none of these are exactly perfect. They never will be, but whatever's closest. Okay. And then Z, I'm a person who is self controlled and logical. I don't like revealing my feelings or getting bogged down in them. I am efficient, even perfectionistic about my work and prefer working on my own. If there are problems or personal conflicts, I try not to let my feelings influence my actions. Some say I'm too cool and detached, but I don't want my private reactions to distract me from what's really important. I'm glad that I usually don't show my reactions when others get to me. All right, so 1, 2, or 3 on each of these. Give you a second to do that. All right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to add, notice how this is AX, AY, AZ, then BX, BY, BZ, then CX, CY, CZ, right? So what you want to do is add A and X together and come up with a number, and add A and Y together and come up with a total, and A and Z together and come up with a total. And then you're going to add B and X together, B and Y together, B and Z together, right? And you'll have totals for each of those. And the same thing for C's. And I'll give you a minute because this is math. So I'll give you a second. Actually, more than a second. I'll give everybody a second to do that. And then I will reveal what number it tells you you are. If whatever is your highest total, circle that. Whatever is your highest total, circle that. That will tell you what number by this test you are, right? So an AX is a type 7. An AY is a type 8. If your high is an AZ, you are a type 3. If it is a BX, you are a type 9, more than likely, right? If you're a BY, you're a type 4. If you're a BZ, you're a type 5. If you're a CX, you're a type 2. If you're a CY, you're a type 6. If you're a CZ, you're a type 1. And what this means is more than likely you are that type. Now, Michael Naylor has you pick like the top 3 because maybe that's not it. But anyway, so now that you have these numbers, you can do this. And this is out on Surrender School. If you go under Michael Naylor, there's a picture of him. It says go to the workshop. You go to that. This test is out there. So I do have to say, those of you that don't know the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 8. Enneagram 8s are obvious, right? We may not be able to say, oh, I'm an 8, but everybody that knows 8s knows we're 8s. They just know across the room, they can tell that we're 8s. So 8s are, and it used to embarrass me. I would try to, I wanted to be the mystery in the room, right? I've never been a mystery in any room in my life. So I accept that. As a matter of fact, I embrace it. But the idea here is and once again, each of us are different on different days. Each of us have all of the Enneagram types in us. The whole point of us figuring out what, and as we go through this, we're going to talk about what are some of the fears. When we go deeper next year, we're going to go deeply into what is your basic fear and a secondary fear. What is your basic desire of the types, right? But this is intended just to give you an idea so that you're kind of taking a look at it and saying, okay, I want to really pay attention to that. Okay. So anyway, but none of these are perfectly that person. None of them are. And it was really funny. I took the test and I thought, oh my God, am I going to be something different? I wasn't. I was the same. When I was a kid, I had a kaleidoscope, a paper kaleidoscope. And I don't know how many of you, the young people here probably don't even know what a kaleidoscope is, but they are like, it's just like absolutely amazing. And I can remember I would have this kaleidoscope and it would begin looking something like this, right? It just is, it's kind of a mess of colors, whatever. And then at some point I could get it locked in and it was just so beautiful and so colorful and the patterns were so cool. And then I would set it down and walk away and then come back. And when I picked it up, it was like this again. It would never stay the way it was. And I have found that my recovery is that way as well. So I will lock in, I'll do the work and I lock it in. And I feel like I can walk away and come back and it'll be the same, but it won't. It comes back a mess again. And that's why I basically do something every day. I do something every day to lock in my recovery. And a lot of the work that I'm doing now is Enneagram and my reading and my journaling and my prayer and meditation. I'm really bad at meditation, but I do the best I can. And all of that allows me then to lock this in. That's the reason coming, in my opinion, even when next year, when we're doing the weekly studies that we're doing, if you do nothing in between there, it ends up being like this. It's not locked in. And I want it to be locked in. It doesn't mean, I don't mean permanent. I don't mean, and what happens is as I'm growing spiritually, it looks more and more beautiful all the time. So I love the kaleidoscope metaphor just because that does really help me. So what I'm going to do now is introduce, and we're looking pretty good time-wise. I want to introduce basically the different typical thoughts by type, okay, of getting ready to go to a party. What does this look like? So the type 1, if you tested as a type 1 or think you're a type 1, might say something like, oh, I hope I'm bringing the appropriate wine. The type 2 would say, oh, I hope my friends all like each other. The type 3 would say, I hope to do some networking tonight, right? Because they're really into achievement. The type 4 would say, oh, I'm not in a party mood. I don't really want to go. I'm not in a party mood. And the 5 would say, I wish I could stay home with my like super boring book, whatever that is. And then the 6 would say, I must remember to feed the cat, lock up, turn off the thing, lock the door, all of that, right? That's what the 6, because the 6 is very fear-based. And then the 7, if it isn't fun, if it isn't a fun group, I have other things in mind. So they'll be the ones that get people playing charades or something, right? The 8, I'm out of there. If the food's not good, if the wine's not good, if the company's not good, I'm out of there. And then the 9, I'll feel so good if I make a nice connection tonight. So basically, and once again, all the images that I have here are from that Enneagram Made Easy, which once again is kind of a light-hearted view of the way these different types show up in the world. I happen to believe, by the way, that what happens as we work our program, we become less locked into that type and we start incorporating all these other things, because eventually we basically are incorporating all of the different types. That's why I say, take a look at what you were like when you were 20-ish. Okay. There are within the Enneagram, the way that this is divided, there are three different centers. There is a gut center, which includes the 8, 9, and 1. There is a heart center, which includes the 2, 3, and 4. And there is a head center, which includes 5, 6, and 7. So whatever number that you came up with, 1 through 9, whatever Enneagram type that you possibly may be, you either are part of the gut center, the heart center, or the head center. So I'm going to cover one of the centers each of the 3 weeks is what we're going to cover. And today we are going to cover the gut center, which is the 8, 9, and 1. And what that means is that the gut center basically says there are instinctual feelings and you feel things in your gut. Um, and what's really interesting is all of us are inside of our heads. All of us are fearful. All of us, right, feel, understand, or whether we articulate it or not, we understand what it is to feel sad. We understand all of those things. We all have those myriad emotions. We have the different thoughts, and we all have instincts that we use. The gut center, however, and I guess the other thing is we all believe the rest of the world looks at the world the way we do, and everybody doesn't look at the world the same. So to me, what I've learned in the Enneagram, I'll give you an example. When I first went to program, when I first went to the 12 step, there'd be people in the room that would say things like, oh, I don't know, I just always put other people first, right? Now, I'm an Enneagram 8 and I don't put other people first. So I would hear these people say this and I would think, oh, brother, I mean, inside I'm rolling my eyes and I'm thinking, yeah, me too. And I just thought they were better liars than me. They're not. They really do put other people first. They really do that. Now, very often the twos, especially early in program, they are loving and giving with a hook that you will love me if I give you, if I'm loving and giving. What happens for the two is over time, they become loving and giving without the hook. There is no hook, right? That's how we recover. So anyway, it's cool. I like that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the type 8. So I'm going to, on each of these, I'm going to talk about two different titles for the 8. One is pre-recovery and one is when you return to your true self. So all the way on the left, you'll see challenger, lion-hearted protector. So the 8 is the typical title for the 8 is challenger. When you have returned to your true self, what happens to the 8 is they become the lion-hearted protector. This speaks to me, obviously, because I'm an 8. The typical thoughts of an 8: I don't have to put up with this shit if I don't want to. I added shit because I'm an 8. I'll show him who's really in charge. Why doesn't she stand on her own 2 feet? I hate to see Patty let people walk all over her. So these are typical thoughts of an 8 as they're kind of dealing with the world. What is hard about being an 8? Women 8 sometimes have a hard time in our society because their strength and boldness are considered masculine traits. Here are some things that are hard: overwhelming people with my bluntness, scaring them away when I don't intend to, being restless and impatient with other people's incompetence, sticking my neck out for people and receiving no appreciation for it. The never forgetting injuries and injustices, I'm not like that. Maybe I will. I don't think I've ever been like that. I wasn't raised to be like that, so I'm not like that. Putting too much pressure on myself, yeah. Getting high blood pressure when people don't obey the rules, I don't care about that unless they're my rules. Then I do care about that. And then when things don't go right, and then this idea of trap. I live in Las Vegas, so I could not act like that in traffic, or somebody would murder me probably. Okay, so that's basically what's hard about being an 8. What is easy, what I like about being an 8 is I like being independent and self-reliant. I like being able to take charge and meet challenges head on. I like being courageous, straightforward, and honest. I like getting all the enjoyment I can out of life. I like supporting, empowering, and protecting those close to me. And I like upholding just causes. And then the final piece, what 8s would never dream of doing. We would never dream of eliminating all off-color expressions from our vocabulary, which my friends all think that's hilarious because that absolutely is me. An 8 would never dream of not stating their opinion when they strongly disagree with something. An 8 would never consider stepping down as president because somebody else could do a better job. An 8 would never dream of playing any kind of sport and not trying their hardest to win. And an 8 would never say, fine, let's do it your way. At least an unhealthy 8 wouldn't. And then finally, the example they have here is most 8s don't shrink away unnoticed when insulted. Yeah, you come back at the person. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing. And let's see if there's any 8s that want to share. and tell me if that is like you, or if you have an 8 in your life, tell me if that is like them. All right, Susan, you have your hand up, I see. And Marita, you're next.
I'm just dying because I don't come up as an 8, okay? When I took the test online and take it now. When I took it online, it was number 8 of the 9, in order. But this is exactly my reaction to the dysfunctional childhood family home. I did all this. How dare you? We're going to do this. Like, how can it be that I don't test out as an 8 at all? But it's how it was my reaction to a really bad situation, and my personality, developed along those lines. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I think it does. So quick, I have a couple of questions. When you think about your childhood or the past, just in general, is it still very, very alive for you, as if you're actually there? Or is
Somewhat,
it, yeah,
somewhat.
so the two threes and fours, which are the heart center, the past is very, very alive to them,
Mm,
right? It's as if, I mean, I have my sister's a 3, my brother is a 4, and they will tell stories about our childhood as if it happened yesterday. I can
mm.
barely remember my childhood. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
I can
So
remember it. Yeah.
okay, so you're probably not an 8. Once again, one of the things that I've learned through all of this is when your childhood has been extremely dysfunctional, you will lock into behaviors and you'll borrow from other types in those behaviors. That's what makes this
Mm,
so fascinating and complex,
mhm.
because you will borrow all of this stuff to be able to survive. Your
Yeah,
ego
yeah,
is dragging in whatever it has to get you to survive,
yep.
right? So some of it is just we're pulling off those layers to say, okay, what am I really? This is interesting for me as an 8, because and once again, once we get into, which we won't during this because they don't talk about the basic fear and desire, and we will next year when we start in January, we dig into what is the basic desire and the basic fear of each of the types. And once you I kind of identify that, that helps you as well. So mostly here is just, I would say for you, whichever type you may end up being right now, just kind of coast along with this and watch it and see what registers. But as a child, often your ego will pull in whatever it has to in order for you to survive.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Marita, to you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Your, I won't ask you about you. That's okay. Well, maybe I will. ASX. Does that mean you're very logical as well? Does that mean you're very logical as well as everything else that an 8 is?
No, well, the SX is basically instinctual, and we'll cover that next year.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We
Okay,
will,
I
yeah.
wanted to share
So
about
basically, I
myself,
am an 8.
basically.
I'm a sexual 8, is what it's called. It's one-on-one.
A
Which
sexual 8?
And yes, and I say that because for
Interesting.
those that know the Enneagram, the sexual 8, so the sexual instinct, there's social, sexual, and self-preservation, pushes into the world, and the 8 pushes into the world. So in case you didn't know, I mean, my energy is such that I push into the world. Not everybody does that. And so, and I put that on there so people understand some of the pushing into the world is not my 8ness. It's the predominant instinct in me.
Okay, I want to
Okay.
thank you. I want to say
Uh,
that I have a friend that always calls me a lion. She says I'm like a lion. And that's interesting that, that came up. And every little example you gave, cartoon example you gave of an 8 made me laugh and smile because I totally relate. And
good,
um and then see what
good.
else. I also wanted to say that I was extremely abused as a child, and I did go through a lot of suffering and pain, and I went through periods where I became passive. But when my real personality came out, I've always been very assertive, very even at times confrontational, blunt, definitely. And my father said to my brother, Marita's too strong, I can't break her, you
Yeah,
know. But
yeah.
that's a miracle though.
Yeah, so and okay, so and what I want to say is as you start embracing your 8ness, which is what I had to do, because those kinds of things, like you said, it was like, why am I like this? Nobody else is like this, right? And then once I realized, oh, I'm wired this way. That is why I'm this way, because I'm wired like this, right? That was
Yeah.
so freeing for me because
Right.
instead of trying to be something else or whatever, I just get to relax into what I am. So thank you, Marita. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tricia, to you.
Yes. Okay. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to have to take this test over because I feel like I'm 4, 8, 9, 7, and 6. And so what I'll do is I'll take it over. And I heard you say, go back to when you were younger. So, because I'm taking it according to where I'm at right now, how I
Yeah, and if you
feel.
take, and how long have you been in a program?
So I have 34 years sober.
Well, yeah, okay. So, and what happens is we automatically I mean, we don't have a language for it. So we don't know that's what we're doing, but you're pulling in all these other things. You just are, right? And so if you go back and usually look at yourself in your early 20s, right? Pre-program early 20s, although that maybe even earlier than that for you, because I doubt you're old enough that 20s was pre-program, but okay, if you have that
No,
many years of
actually,
recovery.
I got sober at 21. I
Okay,
was in,
so
yeah.
look at like early days of recovery, and basically, and your fourth step, I'm sure, told a lot about that how you showed up in the world, and how you show up in the world is actually based on how you're wired. Not 100%, but they're actually tied. So yeah, I would say take the test from the perspective, what was I like in my 20s,
Okay,
early
will
20s.
do.
Yeah,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you. Jasmine, to you.
I think the more you talk about it and talk it through, the more clear and apparent it becomes. Because I was starting to get a little frustrated because I'm like, I can't pin this down. I need to figure this out. But when you go back to the basic instinctual fears and drives, what's driving it, it became so apparent and clear. For me, the reason that I kind of know is because the times that I've blown my life up in the name of love, like the desperation, the starvation, like what I would do for it, I would basically set myself on fire.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
and this is one of the things I know, Jasmine, before, right? You kind of identified with six, because sixes are, they're driven by fear, and they're very fearful. But like the big book says, we all have fear. We all have that, right? There's like a special kind of fear that the sixes have, but certainly we all have fear. And so very often six will be one of the choices that people make, because we are all afraid. We all feel that way, right? So I love the fact, because I for all the things that you shared during the office hours and so forth, yeah, a two, just, and for what you just said, right? What was I seeking when I blew my life up? Right, is so clear. And those of you that have been in the sessions in the past understand what I'm saying. Those that haven't been, trust me, when we do the stuff next year, uh, it's going to make such a huge difference. And I think, Marita, because you said it made you laugh, good, because I'm not laughing. This is, I don't think, I'm telling you, for me, the fun is who we become, not who we were. So the showing up in life stuff was like, there's so much more to this. So if I sound like I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get here, it's because I can't wait to get there. So anyway, thank you for that. Thank you so much, Jasmine. And Deborah, go ahead.
Sarah, so as I'm not an 8, but I think my mom was an 8, and as a 4, I found 8s very mean and scary, and yeah, kind of like the way you describe it.
Yep. And I think because the 4s are usually very, very sensitive, they're the most sensitive of all of them, and 8s are very, very forceful. And people used to accuse me of like seeking confrontation, and I would go, I don't seek confrontation, but I don't shy away from it. I guess I did seek confrontation when I look back on those days, right? I was incapable of not going after whatever it was that was in front of me. So anyway, yeah, I think, thanks, Deborah. And I do think that some of it is part of recovery, is the softening of that, the ability to just basically go, okay, I may still have those feelings, but I know how to put a lid on it and still keep myself, because that used to be my choice. I could be my true self, what I thought was my true self, which was actually my false self. I could be in your face, I could be intimidating, I could be all this, or I would soften that and then I lose myself. And now, because of recovery, I'm able to be my true self and still be All right. I'm my true self, which basically says I get to set all this other stuff aside, but I'm still me, right? I don't,
Yes.
and
Can
the
I just
fours, and the fours are just like the eights are. The eights are like too much, and the fours are too much in different ways, right?
different
So
ways? Yeah. No, I was going to say, I also, my daughter's an 8, and I just love her ability to kind of like take control of a situation. And, they're very, very, they're usually the people, they're usually right. I mean, and they know
certainly,
it.
certainly assertive. Yeah, I think so. Thank you. All right,
Yeah.
Katie, to you.
Hi again, Cheryl. So my whole life I've paid attention to my zodiac sun sign, which is a Cancer. So I'm a nurturer and I'm caring and the feelings and all this. The second time I've taken this Enneagram, though, I come an 8, and I look at this and this is me. Like when I'm looking at this stuff, being independent, self-relying, being able to take charge, absolutely courageous. I do like speaking up if others aren't for themselves. So could there be a nice marriage of the two, or
Well, I think this is fascinating because Marita just pointed to herself, meaning she's a Cancer and I'm a Cancer also. And probably Melissa is the person that I want to talk to about that, because she sent me, I don't remember the name of the thing, but she sent me this document that had all this stuff. Anyway, I know nothing that, except it has something to do with stars. I know nothing beyond that, but I will tell you, God has mysteries everywhere. And there is, in my opinion, there is order in the universe. I can't know all the order. I just, when I see it, I go, oh, right, it's a miracle. So I don't know, but I will say, yeah, what I found is the biggest blessing to me of studying the Enneagram is it let me forgive myself. That's the wrong word. It's too strong, but that's it. It let me feel compassion for myself being the way I am, because I did not feel any compassion. I mean, everything. Once I realized it was my fault, that I was the author of my problems, then everything was my fault. And it was, it was torturous. Working a program, being an 8 was torturous, I have to tell you. And maybe it is for everybody, but I know for an 8 it was. But once, at first it wasn't, it was freeing ish, right? But once I studied the Enneagram and I was like, oh, I'm wired this way. I used to try to be strong and courageous. Now I don't have to try to be strong and courageous. I am strong and courageous. I am wired that way. So I can relax into it. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. It's really lovely. So I really want to encourage everybody to come to the to the studies next year. Is going to knock your socks off. It's going to be like that next level. We're very excited about it, obviously. So thank you so much,
it's
Katie. I
interesting.
appreciate that.
The part that mentioned stepping down as president wouldn't do that. In 1984 is when I graduated high school, and my husband jokes about my high school memories. Everyone wrote them. My line that ended it was that I would be the first woman president. Like
There
I
you
just
go.
had that, I had that mind that nothing was, yeah. So this is so interesting.
Awesome.
Thank you very much,
Good.
Cheryl.
Thank you, Katie. Marita?
I used to be very egotistical, in a sense, hard on people in some ways, even though I had compassion on people at times. I had compassion on my parents, believe it or not. I did love them. But I want to say that as I get older, and I've had a relationship with God for a long time, as I get older, I am becoming softer. I am paying attention to people's feelings and caring about their feelings, you
Mhm.
know, and
And I
I
think some of
listen to
that
them.
comes from recovery too, right? And once again,
Right,
I say we don't necessarily have a language for it, but as we are moving through recovery, all of the Enneagram stuff that we're going to be teaching is happening to you. You just don't have the language for it, right? Absolutely.
right,
Thank you,
right.
Marita.
Thank you. Yeah.
Liz, to you.
Yes, I had a trouble at some point to type myself, but it's very clear to me now, with time and with knowing more. So I was all over the place, but it's, yes, being a young infant, like what's going on in the house can change the way we how is it allowed to react and things like that. And after that, if it's too deep in addiction or depression. But yeah, there's an age where you can say, yeah, for sure, I think this is what I am. And when it is described the 8, that's for sure I am not an 8, even if sometimes I could have said, oh, I did act assertive or I did impose, but in my heart, me, it was an act. I always knew I was not a lion. That's why it's very clear. I am not a lion. A Tasmanian devil, for sure, sometimes, but
Yeah.
I never been a lion. That's very clear.
Cool. All right, thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to the 9, and we have a lot of 9s, I think, in here. Okay, so typical thoughts of the 9, and once again, the 9 is at the top. All 3 today are part of the gut center. The typical thoughts of a 9: my taxes are due tomorrow. I'll do them after I clean my desk. Why do people get so worked up about things? The more she nags, the longer I'll drag it out. I'll agree with whatever she says, but I'll do what I want. You gotta love 9s. See, an 8 would say, I'm not doing that. 8 would say no, but the 9 says, yeah, I'll agree, and then do whatever they want, what I want. Okay, what's hard about being a 9? Being judged and misunderstood, and being viewed as placid or indecisive. Being critical of myself for lacking initiative or discipline. Sometimes 9s can beat themselves up for that. Being too sensitive to criticism, taking every raised eyebrow or twitch of the mouth personally. Being confused about what I really want, caring too much about what others will think of me, and not being listened to or taken seriously. Notice that they are the peacemaker, and the true self is the gentle mystic, and a mystic is someone who seeks God, basically. All right, what I like about being a 9. So 9s, what they like about being non-judgmental and accepting, caring for and being concerned about others, being able to relax and have a good time, knowing that most people enjoy my company because I'm easy to be around, my ability to see different sides of an issue and to be a good mediator or facilitator, my heightened awareness of sensations, aesthetics, and the here and now, being able to go with the flow and feel one with the universe. The things that 9 would never dream of doing: complying immediately with what their partner tells them to do in an unpleasant job, to do an unpleasant job in an authoritative manner, calling up an aggressive talk show host and engaging in a screaming match, purposefully creating an uproar at the family gathering. And then this says, look, Doc, you made 3 phone calls, dozed off twice, started late, stopped early, forgot my name, and I'm not paying for this session. I'm no longer pathologically polite. Okay. 9s would never dream of announcing long ahead of time that they're going to go somewhere they know their partner won't approve of, so the partner will have plenty of time to fight with them about it. Telling everyone in a group they're angry and exactly what each person there did to make them so. Saying, I don't want to talk when a friend who desperately needs sympathy calls up, or confronting someone face to face in an extremely critical manner. All right. That was fast. All right. So I know a lot of 9s who want to share. I hope want to share. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's have some 9s talk to us. What it feels like to be a 9. Okay, Helen, to you.
Yeah, well, I absolutely love all the cartoons and the book because that's exactly me. And one of the beautiful things about the Enneagram is, as you said at the very beginning, Cheryl, it's the understanding that this is how I'm wired. There's nothing bad about me, wrong about me, faulty about me. It's just that this is the way I have learned to survive. And the Enneagram for me is actually realizing that I have put myself into this box really, really tight. And I think this is all of who I am. And the good thing about what I've learned about the Enneagram is it is giving me the map to get out of that confinement, so that I actually am able to grow and develop. So yeah, everything that you said, it's lovely. And discovering the Enneagram was really, for me, getting an explanation of why I behave in the way that I behave, and that it's just in me. It's just the way I do things. But yeah, really, really enjoying what you're covering tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Sandy, to you.
Yeah. I've got a bit of a cold, so hopefully you can hear me. Um, I think where I sort of see some of my characteristics of the nine, one of the characteristics, and I love the word narcotization. I put myself to sleep with rituals, and so I tend to be, I have to make the coffee right at this time. I have to clean. If there's a dirty dish, it has to be done right now. So I don't look like I'm putting things off because I'm using those things to put myself to sleep. But what I do put off is doing things for myself that would give me joy.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring that up as, like each type we have a way of working with those characteristics, and it might, like, I don't put things off, so I must not be a nine. No,
No.
I put off anything that's related to me. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, and I have learned so much from the nines in our group, and the nines and the fours, especially because it's one of those things. I have a niece that is a nine, and I can remember I went back home. We grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I lived in Colorado. I flew home, went to pick her and her sister up, and she didn't want to go with us, right? And her sister was 16 and she was 9. And I said, "You're 9, you don't get a vote, get in the car," right? Which is a typical 8 thing to say. But she's a 9. And so when she relates that story, she said, "Hey, remember that time you told me I didn't matter?" I never said she didn't matter. I said she didn't get a vote. That's what she heard. And so, of course, they tease me now. And now that I know nines, it's like the worst thing in the world for them to feel like they don't matter. It's horrible. Anyway, but I'm glad they can tease me about it. So that's good. That's like interaction of 9 and an 8. Okay. Deborah, to you.
I have a brother who's a 9, and he once told me, well, he got mad at me for something I said, and he said he would write an email to me. And 2 years later, I had still not gotten the email. And so it helped me, to understand. But as a 4, of course, my heart is like, oh my God, my brother won't talk to me, right? And he doesn't understand me. Okay, well, one last thing. I don't know where I read this, but I heard that it said, and I don't know how 9s are going to take this, but if Jesus Christ as a man was typed on the Enneagram, he would have been a 9. So I don't know what that's.
I think all the seriously religious, like all the saints of the world, like the people like Jesus and Muhammad and whatever, I think they probably were all things, right? Not just one type, I think. It is funny though, the different types, like the stories that you read about this, that you as your type are attracted to. So when Jesus goes in among the moneylenders and throwing tables around and shit, that's my favorite Jesus story, because I'm an 8. So of course it would be, right? Anyway. All right. Thank you. Lisa.
Well, you did say he was the mystic. That 9s are the
certainly is that.
That
yeah,
would make.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, Deborah. Lisa, to you.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, those cartoons, every single thing applied to me 100%. And learning the Enneagram and studying it with you has really, really helped me. Like you were saying, with the self-hatred or the self-condemnation, so I have compassion for myself. I'm just wired this way. This just lovingly points out some of my character defects that I can try to work on. And I know you haven't covered mantras today, but the mantra for the 9 that you shared with us, resolve the little things before they become big things, has been a game changer for me, because I am the ultimate procrastinator, where I have had my taxes due the next day and not had them done. And then I am so mad at myself. And when the stuff piles up to here, and I spend so much energy being angry at myself, and that energy could be better spent, putting toward the things. But now I always remember, because I'll say, oh, I'll do that later. And I'm like, no, resolve the small things now. And so it's really been a game changer, in addition to the fact that I've got my husband interested enough a little bit in studying himself primarily. He's an 8, but it's really helped our marriage, because I would take, it said the 9 takes things personally, right? So I would take all his, big presence and kind of I don't know, assertiveness, I guess, personally, and I just shrink if he starts like bitching and griping about something. I'm shrinking because I don't want to hear it. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And now I just go, it's not directed at me. I can listen, and then anyway, it's been just a world of help between the two of us, maritally. I'm gonna, I'm trying to figure out how to work it into my sponsorship in my OA step work with my sponsees, without diluting it from the big book, because I'm a big book thumper too, anyway, yeah, those are just my.
So Lisa, you will love next year, because we're working each of the steps by type. So, and what you'll get are questions specific to type about the step. Oh, you're going to love it. Absolutely love it.
That'll be amazing. Thanks for listening.
It will be. I'm excited about that too. Yeah. And I want to say too, you can use the word aggressive for 8s, because 8s can be very, very aggressive. Even our complaining is aggressive.
Yeah.
Even our complaining to other types, they're like, oh, like it's too much, right? It's like, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
So absolutely. Thank
Being
you.
the peacemaker and the mediator, that's like the last thing I want in my environment. And I find myself, besides shrinking because I feel like it's personal, if we're in a group setting, I'm like embarrassed of him because I'm worrying about what other people are thinking about him. But I'm the 9 that's taking it. They're like totally fine with it. So I'm one that interprets it as like conflict, but it's really not. It's just his personality. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not just accepting and feeling compassion for yourself, but for other people as well. And I'm finding that too, that I can feel such compassion for the different types and where they are in their journey, because it used to be really hard for me to feel that at all. So it's been just such a blessing to work with people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Trisha P.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. So I did redo it. I'm a number 2. Definitely resonates with me. And then I was just listening to you talk about the anger scripture. Love that. That's one of my favorite ones, because for me, it allowed me to have justified anger, because I'm a helper and I always want to help people. And, I was even a caregiver, but it allowed me, after I read that scripture, like God set me free with that, because it was like, there's legitimate anger. It's justified anger. It's okay to be angry. You know what I mean? But sin not, and so I had to like really be okay with being angry, and that I gave myself permission. Do you get what I mean? Because I didn't want to
do.
be,
And I'll tell you that is very much 2s don't feel comfortable with anger. So part of your growth is that, right? Where 8s like live in anger all the time, right? So, but 2s, and I have a dear friend that's a 2, and it's like, now it's not hard for her to be angry, even at me. But in general, when I first knew her, I've known her for a decade probably, it was very difficult for her to even feel anger, let alone show anger. So yeah, that's great. That's one. And we're going to cover the heart types, which are 2, 3, and 4 next week. Or no, 2 weeks from now. So you want to be there on the 7th. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Melissa, to you.
Yes, I am type 8 or 9, sorry. Yeah, for me, it's very difficult to stand up for myself, to say my opinion. I always struggle with this. I never had a voice. My parents were not just narcissistic, so they were bodily abusive and verbally. So like I was always shut down. Yeah, also bullied sometimes in groups. So I learned to do this, but there are some such situations when I don't do this. When I have a bad gut and like I feel so scared, like then I'm not saying something. So sometimes I say this, sometimes no. Sometimes when I estimate the people like, okay, they flip out, as like they would say you are stupid and you are aggressive, then I won't say this, because then it hurts me too badly. And I do want to communicate with people, but as long as they respect me. And when I get insulted, and I don't think I take it too seriously, like it has been said, or personally. Being insulted is not okay. Let's put it this way. And being bullied is not okay either. This is not a way I communicate. If somebody comes to me and say, hey, I want to give you feedback, you could do this and this, then I'm okay. Then I want to listen. I want to put in. But when somebody approach me like this way and like, I mean, you are so whatever, then the conversation is over for me. Then I won't say my opinion. I would just walk away. So
Yeah.
it alternates. What I found very, one thing here, I tend to numb out many times in calls. I just numb out. I don't know if it's typical for this. Is it typical for this type or?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That is
Yeah,
their main method of escaping for sure for a 9. So I want to
so
say,
sometimes I just freeze emotionally, but also my body. And the doctor said I'm in freeze. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to hold something in the hand to hold me back, or I'm doing a lot of breathing exercising when I talk with people. I just don't feel myself. I'm so disconnected from myself. And I think this is why it's so difficult for me to stay present in relationships, or even if in whatever, I don't know, discussions, because I don't feel myself. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't even know if I'm feeling angry or if I'm feeling sad. I don't know.
Okay, so lots going on. Okay, so real quick, I want to say, we absolutely are a specific type. And once again, these are archetypal. They've been throughout history, they are there. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's how we show up in the world. So what I have found is when I can discover, because my type is my true self, my true self is a type. And right. And what happens, I mean, maybe this is bullshit, but it doesn't feel like bullshit to me. It feels true to me that when I can relax into my true self, then codependency is gone. Addiction is gone. All these things that cause my real suffering are gone, because it's the fact that I cannot be my true self that keeps me from, or that makes me go to those things. It makes me numb out. It makes me ignore things. It makes me not take care of myself, depending upon the type. So what happens is, once we can figure that out and say, oh, and like I said, for me, I just go, oh, I'm wired that way. Okay, I don't have to try to be strong and courageous. I am strong and courageous. It's like a 2 doesn't have to try to earn love. They are loved, right? You know what I'm saying? So what happens here is, once we can discover that, then, and once again, we're doing it during the 12 steps. So our work in the 12 steps, or in CODA or whatever, that work is actually doing all the things that the Enneagram stuff is too. But now what happens with me, at least, is I have a language that allows me to feel compassion for myself and to understand that other people do not have the same view of the world that I have. They look at it completely differently. And then I can go, oh,
I struggle with
not only is
compassion
that
a
why
lot.
I behave that way, that's why they behave that way, right? And so then it becomes more acceptable. And I'm not saying we accept bad behavior. That's not it. But I can look at it and go, oh, I see why they are that way. And even unhealthy people, I could see why they are that way. So so in that respect,
yeah, the problem is I have too much empathy for others. I work too much things up for others, and they don't do nothing in return. This is the problem.
So I can't
it's
wait
just on
until
one side, and then it doesn't work.
I'm excited for you to discover what type you are, because a lot of the things you're
But
saying.
last question: if I feel I can relate to other types too, can I also, or do I have to take just the highest?
No, I will tell you, when you dig deeper, right? That right now there's videos out there that we did of the EEE 12 step from last year, that basically introduced the basic desires, basic fears, and all that stuff, not all, but lots of Enneagram stuff. So if you want to dig deeper there, I recommend that you go watch the videos on Surrender School.
Yeah, because I also feel very strongly called to number 1, for example, and it's totally
so I
contradictory.
would recommend that you watch those videos, because I think they'll be helpful. And obviously there's all kinds of research out there, Enneagram things that you can look at, which will be fun, I think, getting ready for next year. Okay. All right. So Jim, go ahead.
Cheryl, thanks. I'll be quick with this here. It's a great workshop, but right now I'm feeling like a bit of a crazy mixed up kid. Because all these numbers have started to come into my life here, the 6s and the 5s. Now, I take it I mean, when you're reading out the characteristics of a 9, particularly the second slide, so I could identify with a lot of that, having been that person at points in time. So, as someone who believing I'm a 4, the wings and arrows. So at healthy points, as a 4, at healthy points in life, I may identify with that certain characteristics of a 9, and that this will get revealed to me as we go through, particularly beginning in January and reading through this book. These things that are making me feel like a crazy mixed up kid at the moment will reveal themselves as something else. So it's just a kind of yes, no thing.
So, and I do think that once we begin the deep work that we're talking about, things become clearer. I mean, they just do. I think the questions that we have for that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Okay, Carmen, and then we'll move on to type 1. Go ahead, Carmen.
Hi, I'm just going to make a really quick pitch for the In Detail Enneagram. I'm a 9. I am a great 9. The thing that I've really learned in doing this last year with Cheryl is how I love to put things off. And I love to put things off. Well, that tax cartoon, yeah. And not deal with stuff, that's me. But also what I'm realizing is that, I used to think that I could put stuff off and it didn't hurt me or didn't matter. Well, it does matter. Not only does it matter because I feel like shit, but it just hangs on to me. It just hangs on to me, and I'm uncomfortable, and I hate that feeling. But I also put off the things that are important to me, and that was probably the biggest learning for me, is how I put off stuff that's meaningful for me, and how underneath it all I get really pissed off because I don't get to do what I really love to do. And it's the things that I really love to do that fill me up, that help me not go into my addiction. So I've done 12 steps many times. They're wonderful. I love them. And this has just opened up a different page or chapter to me that I haven't experienced before. So go for it if you can. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Carmen. And I will say that is one of the things I've learned from working with the 9s this past year is sometimes people will think because the sloth, that little character, is the icon for the 9, that means that they're lazy or that they don't get things done, and that's not true at all. They're not, that is absolutely not true, but they will put off things that bring them joy. They will put off things that matter to them and do all this stuff for all these other people. And once again, they may look like a 2, but a 2 is motivated because they want love back, and a 9 is motivated because they want peace. So they'll do all kinds of things for other people. They put off the things that give them joy. They put off the things that are important to them. And as a matter of fact, sometimes to the point that they need to sit down and say, what is important to me? I don't even know what is important to me. Right. So yeah, it's been just fascinating to work with the 9s this past year. I've just loved it. Okay, we're going to move on to 1s. Let me share my screen again. This has been great. I really appreciate all the shares. I think that's wonderful. Okay, so that was the 9. Now let's go to the 1. Okay, the 1 it says, how I drive myself crazy. So type 1 is known as a perfectionist, and they're when they've arrived in themselves or back to their true selves, they are a merciful teacher, which I love that. Okay, how I drive myself crazy. I should have checked the figures one more time. I could use some help, but nobody can do it as well as I can. I should have run the meeting more fairly. Am I dressed properly? So they're really into being right, doing the right thing, right? Okay. What's hard about being 1? Being disappointed with myself and others when my expectations are not met, feeling burdened by too much responsibility, thinking that what I do is never good enough, not being appreciated for what I do for people, being upset because others aren't trying as hard as I am, obsessing about what I did or what I should do, being tense, anxious, and taking things too seriously. I'm the perfect wife. I'm the perfect employee. I'm the perfect daughter. I'm the perfect mother. I am perfectly stressed. What I like about being 1, if you're a 1, what people say they like, being self-disciplined and able to accomplish a great deal, working hard to make the world a better place, having high standards and ethics, not compromising myself, being reasonable, responsible, and dedicated in everything I do, being able to put facts together, coming to good understandings, and figuring out wise solutions, being the best I can be and bringing out the best in other people. And things that a 1 would never dream of doing, being half an hour late to work, not sending thank you notes for birthday gifts within 2 days, not making reservations for every night of their vacation, leaving their clothes in a heap and their dishes unwashed all week, laughing it off when criticized, eating with their elbows on the table and using their sleeve for a napkin, taking a relaxing bath just before guests come over instead of going through the house one more time to make sure it's clean. And then it says at the bottom, angels fly because they take themselves lightly. Okay, do we have any ones that would like to share? Go ahead, Sharon.
Oh, yes, Cheryl, I've waited for this and I'm glad I did. You asked to compare. Okay, here's my dilemma. I took the test and I come out CY with a 6, but a CZ with a 5. Okay? And they seem opposite. I don't know if they are. Is the 6 and I'm sorry, is the C
What are the numbers on that? I'm sorry, I don't know the CY, that stuff. What does
Oh,
it say
I'm
there?
sorry. The number I got, well, I don't know. It's a 6. I think it's type 6.
Okay.
From your test, the 2 that I put together came out with a number 6 for the CY combination. And the last combination was a 5. I think the 2 that I'm looking at are a number 1 and a number 6. Is that possible? I've recently done this and thought I was a 6, but in the past, I've done it and thought I was a 1. Is that just, I don't know what could be causing that. It's really hard for me to distinguish that. I could see myself in a lot of the characteristics of the one you just put up there. I really could. But I also tend to be very fear-based. Is it possible that a 6 is a wing of the 1, or could it be possible that, oh, the 6 has the wing of a 1?
So the wings are what is next to you on the Enneagram
Oh,
circle.
on the other side. Okay, yeah,
Yes,
that's
okay.
right.
So if you are a 1, you have a 9 and a
And
2,
8.
and if you're a 6,
Or
you have a 5 and a 7. So so a couple questions. I think so. First of all, not imperative that you know right now. First of all, everybody is fear-based. Everybody is fear-based. They absolutely are. So if I asked you to sit down and you have something coming up in the next week or so, sit down and write down all the best things that could possibly happen. Could you do that?
Probably.
Okay. Most 6s would say, no. It would be really hard to do that because they 6s are they're very based in fear. All of us are afraid. If you remember in the big book, Bill W. says fear is the thread, right? That's one of the reasons when people can't choose between 2 things, 6 is almost always one of the 2, because all of us have fears. And so that kind of crops up and it shows up. So sometimes people are not 6s and they may think they're 6s because they're afraid.
One of the
We're all
reasons
afraid.
I
Everybody's
chose
afraid.
to,
So, but the idea here is, so 1s, once again, 1s are the ones that, like what I found in program, they're usually relatively strict in their interpretation of the traditions, right? I mean, that they're the ones that say, oh, you can't read that because it's whatever, right? They're the ones that are most likely to speak up about it because they know it's the right thing to do, if that makes sense. So if you use terminology like that's the right thing to do, I'm going to do what's right, like that's sometimes that shows up in 1s much more than it does in 6s.
okay, one of the reasons I used to think that I was a 1 because I come from a family and I was the one individual in the family, and I'm also in a current family where I have really performed as a reformer. You know, it's been, and the other reason I think I might be a 1 is that I have a lot of gut reactions. Anything that goes on with me shows up in my gut. I feel it immensely. So, you know, even though I have a CY or a CZ, I don't know, which you said CY was type 6, and then I just thought I heard CZ as being type 1, and the 2 being so closely correlated in my personality, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so like I said, 6s will if somebody is like they identify as I'm this or this, the or this is almost always a 6. So for right now, I would suggest especially if you feel things in your gut, because we
Yeah.
tend to believe anything, our view of the world, where we feel things, all of that, we think that everybody in the whole world is the same way that we are, and they're not. So that gut center type literally have very strong instinctual responses to things. And sometimes ones will hide those or basically deny them or repress them, but they're there, right?
Did
And
you also did you also say that the gut group is very head oriented or not?
no, there's a head, heart, and gut. I mean, we all think. So all of us have thinking stuff, right?
Right.
But and I had to really study this because I'm like, how am I a gut type? That seems so weird because I'm inside my head. I'm not anymore, but I used to be. I would ruminate over everything, and it's like because I had this gut reaction, and then I try to logic it out. Well, you can't
Okay.
logic it out. It's a gut reaction, right? So
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for letting me have the time. I'm done.
Oh, you bet,
I'll wait.
Sharon. You bet. Okay, Susan, I see your hand is up. Thank you, Sharon.
What is the true self of the reformer? Like you said, the peacemaker was the gentle mystic, and the challenger was the
merciful teacher.
Okay.
They're the merciful teacher.
Thank you.
So, and how that shows up, by the way, right? When I talk about they're the ones that are really into the traditions and doing it right and all of that stuff, what happens is when you watch the transformation of an Enneagram type 1, they will go from the one that's always quoting rules and doing whatever to this merciful teacher. And so it shows up as this compassionate, lovely, compassionate person who still does the right stuff. Just right. And next week we'll talk about the 2, and the 2 is still kind and generous. They're just kind and generous like they've always been, but there's no hook on it. So it's like sometimes you'll show up in the world completely different, but very often the way that you show up is a kinder version of what you would have been, of what you were at your worst, if you will. It's just a kinder version of that, right? And it's a more like self-actualized version of those things, I think, or something like that. All right, so we're getting close to time here. I want to share my screen again. Yeah, Sharon L., I see that Richard Rohr is a lovely type 1. He's a lovely man, and he is a type 1, absolutely. And if you watched Michael Naylor is a type 4, which we're going to cover the type 4 next week. So, okay, I'm sharing. What I want to do is I want to talk for a second about the icons, which I introduced, but I've changed some. So for those that are new to this, these will be the first time you've seen them probably, or except I showed them. They kind of were hidden. But I changed some of these because I've learned stuff. I've learned stuff this last year about the different types. Okay, so the 1 is the tenderhearted or merciful teacher, is the true self. So when you return to if you are a 1, you will become this tender-hearted teacher, right? You still are instructional. You're still helpful in that way that people are doing the right thing, but it's once again with compassion. And so I left it the beaver, and that's because he's industrious. That's why I picked that little icon. And when we work through the stuff, the icons basically show up. So it's really easy for you to identify, oh yeah, this is me. This is my type. Okay. The intuitive healer, I changed from my little dog to this beautiful person that is an intuitive healer. That's actually a picture, I guess, of an intuitive healer, because they are they really understand what it is that people need, and they morph into someone who is still giving and loving, but there is no need to be loved back because they understand that they are loved, and that they are wanted, and so they give that gift of kindness and giving just automatically. It's a beautiful transition to watch. The inspiring champion, I left the same. And once again, they are really into seeming very successful, which is why I picked the peacock. The creative alchemist, I found another picture of a unicorn. The 4s believe them are very unique, and they know that they are unique, and they like to be noticed as, no, they don't like, this is what I found. They want people to understand that they're unique, but they don't need to be pointed out that they're unique. They're unique enough that way. So anyway, but I thought this was an adorable picture of the unicorn, which is also unique. So that's why I picked that. The kind wizard, last time I had a bear there because they tend to hibernate or isolate, but I really like this picture of Gandalf, and my husband is a kind wizard, so I love that. I left the courageous pathfinder as the 6, the true self of the 6, because they are very, very frightened. they take fear to a whole new level, which we will talk about next year. This idea of of turning anxiety into something more than just anxiety is what the 6 does. But once they return to their true selves, they can be the courageous pathfinder. I left the otters because they're a perfect picture of the joyful visionary, which is what the 7 is when they return to their true selves. The 8 is the lion-hearted protector. When they return to their true selves, that is what I'm finding this, and I love the lion, so that's good. And then the sloth for the gentle mystic, because anyway, it's adorable. I think it's adorable. Okay, so let's see. What else do I have to do here? All right. Any additional sharing? Otherwise, we're going to see you in 2 weeks. Remember that we skipped. Let me stop sharing and see it there. Okay. Sharon, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I do have another question. I can see Richard Rohr as a 1 because of his wings he has clarified everything so beautifully in his personality, and he really fits not only the 1, but the wings of his 1. He's a healer and he's a gentle mystic.
Yes, and one of the things that we do when we will study this next year, or if you go back and watch the videos, your wings. So let's say that you are a 1. The most accessible traits that you can pull in, which we automatically do as part of program. We don't know we're doing that, but that's what we're doing, are the wings and the arrows. So the arrows that are on like you see the arrows. So what will happen is you will pull in the wings and you will pull in the arrows and you become that full person. At some point in time, you have all 9 types that you have incorporated.
Okay,
but the ones that are wings and arrows are the most accessible to you.
I just got excited because the very second year, I've been in recovery 24 years now. The very second year in recovery, the most attractive thing to me was, what the hell is meditation all about? And I went into it full force, and I've not given it up. But I am perfectionistic about my program. I do my 8, 9, and 10 step on a daily basis. This is where my perfectionism comes in from my 1, I believe. Okay. I don't know about the healer part of me. I'd like to see if that's developing. Now I can begin to understand this on a personal level. Thank you. I'm going to stop.
You're welcome. And I want to add to that too, because what happens is ones, because they like to be right, sometimes they will torture themselves over that. But once you can relax in and go, well, of course I do this. I'm wired like this. Now let's soften it and add that compassion and the mercy part and all of that. Yep.
I have to also say that if that's the case, it's going to help me with my trauma background. I come from complex PTSD background, and I think it has added to a horrendous amount of confusion as to who I am, what I'm about. And it's one of the gifts I want to finally receive as a crone before I transition.
There you go.
I am now going to stop.
Amen, sister. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Marita, to you.
Yeah, thank you. What you touched upon just now about wings, I was going to bring up because I'm very much into mysticism and studying and meditating in different religions, spiritual paths, I like to call them. And even though I'm an 8, and so that's the 9 wing, and then the other wing is 7. I forget what. I'm trying to remember what 7 is.
They're fun. Sevens are fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get into fun sometimes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I was wanted to be a 7. I have a 7 wing. I mean, I don't know if that's my strong. Probably is. I don't know. Who knows? Melissa, to you.
Yeah, I surely wanted to share. Yeah, the perfectionism is really bad with me. I'm a teacher, but it's not the strongest number. It's just one of the numbers. What I find very helpful with number 1 is just to not carry the burden of everybody. Like, you cannot rescue everybody. I had also to give up on people or to give up on students, because if they don't want help, you feel over responsible, but you cannot force other people to cooperate or so. So I always try to remember, don't take the burdens on everybody, on you. Just you have your own burden, and this is what I wanted to share. Perhaps it helps somebody.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And you're right, absolutely, because yes, you can't.
Yeah.
We can't change anybody. I can barely change myself, but I sure as fuck can't change anybody else. Thank you. Susan, to you.
Can you recommend a free online test that's, more in depth than this?
I don't think the in-depth tests actually give you any more than the simple tests do, pretty much. I mean, so usually the ones that are free that I think are good are the quest tests, which I just did here, and then there's like another 2-question test or something like that. So I think of those. To me, my favorite test that tells you like lots of information is from the Enneagram Institute, but it's $20 to take that test. So
Yeah,
I don't
I
have
looked into
anything
that.
like that. So, but I don't think it comes up, at least for me, it came up the same. It came up the same regardless of whether it was the simple 2-question test or 6-paragraph test, or if it was the big heavy duty test. So I don't think so. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Selma, to you.
Yeah, hi. I know that we're not talking sixes today, but I just want to say that, and I'm a 4, but I'm married to a 6 and I live with it. Wait a second, I'm trying to get the chat. Okay. For me, one of the biggest helpful things to think about that has changed my reactions to this, my husband, is when you asked that question, you were giving a part, whatever, and you said, could you make a list of all the positive things that might happen? You said a 6 wouldn't be able to. It's because their mind all automatically goes to what could go wrong and having to be prepared for that.
Absolutely.
And every single time, everything he does is always about, well, we need to plan for this scenario, this scenario, this scenario, leave early, make sure we have 6 locks, do this, do that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just so
Yep.
just for people who are struggling with, am I a 6 or a 1 or worst case scenario is a big piece of the 6, worrying.
Yeah. So 2 of the subtypes of the 6 are very driven by that, and they do make the list of. And I've asked people before, okay, now tell me, why do you make this list of all the things that could possibly go wrong, right? And they're like, well, because I want to be ready for. This comforts you to be ready for that, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to think about it, but yeah, and absolutely. Okay. But doesn't it let you feel compassion for that person?
Oh yeah, I don't try to change him anymore. I go, oh, it's your 6. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, you're good to
and
go.
I know he has to do it, so.
That's right. Exactly.
And the other thing I want to say real quick that you helped me with, you being an 8, is you said something about we won't curb our colorful language. Do you know how many 8s I've said, can you please not use the, swear words? So now I'm going to just go, oh, well, she's an 8.
Well, and I just realized just a minute ago, I used the F-bomb. I'm like, oh man, I almost made it through the whole thing without an F-bomb, but I didn't.
Then I said, well, she's an 8.
I know, that's my favorite line in that entire book is that. It's like,
thank you.
Okay,
thank you
I'm
for
not
everything.
the only one.
All right.
Thanks, Selma. Okay, Trisha P., back to you.
Yes, I really want to get, Cheryl, I've enjoyed all of this, but I really want to get the number 2, which you had just got through talking about, the unconditional love. It's our gift, and it is, but I really like what you said, how you said it. And I really just wanted to write that down so I can have it, so I can just kind of read it.
Like, you want me to quote myself? Is that what you're saying?
That was real good stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Were you just going off your head, or did you have that written down?
Oh no, it's out of my head. Sorry. But I think probably what you're talking about is the 2s are okay. And we'll talk in depth about this once again next year. And I'll talk a little bit about the way 2s show up. But basically 2s are loving and giving. They are loving and giving, but they have this need. There's actually a quid pro quo where they say, I'm doing all this giving and you need to love me back. So they have a hook that says, love me back. And the problem with an unhealthy 2 or even an average 2 is they don't hear the love. They don't hear the thank you. So they get stuck with that, right? So the idea, what happens is when the 2 moves in the direction of health and they basically return to their true selves, they are giving and loving, but there is no hook. They're just giving and loving. They're generous and they're kind and they're like wonderful, wonderful. I mean, all of us end up being better people. I'll say that, but the twos are just like remarkably lovely.
Right. And but you didn't, well, good. Okay. Bottom line was the way you said it before was so eloquent, but this one, no,
Well,
not
it's
so
being
much, but it's
recorded, so
okay.
you can find it in the recording. I'd
Okay,
like to hear myself
excellent.
being eloquent.
Yes. Yeah,
Sorry.
because I definitely do the unconditional love. So, but yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tricia. Yeah, so this is recorded if you want to go find it. Maybe I will too. I'll be interested in
That
hearing
would be
that
awesome.
too. Thank you, Tricia. All right, Ambra, to you again.
Why the type 4 is creative alchemist? You explained that before, and I
I did
missed
not
something.
explain it, and yeah, because we're not.
No.
I do cover it in the Tripoli 12. If you want to go watch that, it is explained there. And next year, when we start working at this, we'll go deeply into that as well. And what it basically means, they are creative, and an alchemist is someone who turns things into gold. So when the 4 is everything that they are meant to be, and they return to their true selves, they will be this creative person that can turn all things into wonderful things. They're very, very creative, and they make the world a better place. 4s are awesome people.
Oh my God. I want to only ask you where I can find that. There is some video on that?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Well, yeah. Oh,
It's
yes. There's videos of the sessions. Joey, will you put like a link to the Tripoli 12 thing? And also, all of those titles came from Michael Naylor's book, because he and I love his stuff on Friendly Circle Berlin, and also here on Surrender School we do the Michael Naylor book study. So the titles that are the true self titles, I call them, are from him. I didn't make these up. Those are from him. I picked the icons. I guess maybe I'm creative too, but okay. All right, Marie, thank you, Marita, to you.
Is that normal to be a blabbermouth and like I am, and a what do you call
For
it?
an 8, you mean?
Creative.
For an 8? Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I am. Like, there's no shutting me up. So
Oh, okay. Thank you. I just wondered if I was normal.
well, I don't. Normal might be a stretch, Marita, but
Okay. Okay.
it's okay.
You
I'm
ain't
kidding about
talking
you.
shit. You ain't talking shit.
That's right. Thank you, Cindy B. To you.
Just wondering, are you? I mean, I'm trying to think of how to put this. The Surrender School, is that you and Michael Naylor, or is that just you, or is the Surrender School something separate?
This is interesting. I don't know what's happening here. So Surrender School is an organization created, frankly, by Joy, and it is for people that mostly for 12-step people, and it's additional outside of the 12-step stuff. And so it's been around for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years now. And we just keep adding more and more content to it. Michael Naylor is one of our guest speakers. I am one of the guest speakers, but it has a board, and it's a 501(c) not-for-profit organization that basically puts things out that are related to, adjacent to 12-step. And so it's basically recovery material, and we have discovered that the Enneagram is one of those things that we like to put out there, so we put it out there. So, but Michael Naylor is one of our guest speakers.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification. Because I was wondering too, is there an actual building, brick and mortar, that you could go to that would be the Surrender School, or is it
Wouldn't
mainly
that be
just
awesome?
online?
That would be awesome. Joy, put that on your list of things to do. But no, currently
I
no,
was
it's
just-
all online.
no, because I was just curious in the sense that, I don't know, but to be it sounds like a cool place to go to, the Surrender School. It sounds mysterious, and it's up in Maine, and maybe it's, I don't know. Can you tell I'm a number 4?
It does sound awesome. I do know that Sandy knows something about Recovery Cafe, and I know Recovery Cafe is brick and mortar. At least they have several brick and mortars throughout the country that are for people that are seeking recovery, I think. But I know I just told you everything I know about Recovery Cafe.
Yeah, no,
Michael
Joy
Naylor. suggested
I
that I research that. Go ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
I just put a little note in the chat that said there's a retreat in California. No, I've just, because I know that Michael Naylor's in Maine, and I believe that he has events there. So I was just trying to tease out what was, I thought at first it looked like you were all just part of the surrender school, but no, I see it, and it's all good. It's all good. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a lot of it is just, bringing people in, similar to what Friendly Circle Berlin does.
And
Liz,
what
to
I've been
go ahead.
doing, and I just wanted to ask your opinion, is that I've just been letting the Enneagram just let it soak it in
Yeah,
the
that's
sense that
absolutely. Yeah,
I'm
great idea.
not trying to analyze it, because I came up between a 4 and a 5, but the more that I learn and come to the workshops and work with Michael and you and all that, it does become more clear. And it just, for some reason, it just seems like it's more fun to just go with it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does to me too, because that's what I had to do, I think, initially once, right? I read a lot, but yeah, so yeah, it completely makes sense. It absolutely does.
It's
Thank
just
you.
such a fun thing to get together and then look at, because I do like to escape. I'm a writer too, so
Cool.
my imagination is rampant, and I could make up all kinds of fantasies to go on.
All
But
right,
no,
thank
and
you.
it really does help make other people more interesting instead of annoying, I hope.
Yeah, I agree. That's when I talk about the compassion, I think that's what I'm saying too. So thank you, Cindy. All right, and
Thanks,
we're
everybody.
so Liz, we're gonna wrap up with you, and then we'll say the surrender prayer, a serenity prayer, and then we'll be out of here. So Liz, go ahead.
Yes, I hope there was a person who asked for a test, free. I just wanted to share my experience, just to say, a lot of people, my saga was trying to type me, and I know I'm a 4, even though I identify a lot to a 9, a lot to a 5, a lot to a 6. I know I am a 4, but it took a lot of time. And that test, ABC, XYZ, already told me I was a 4. I took many tests I could find online. I even pay, and I'm Canadian, for that $20-something test, which was way more expensive for me. And that was very mixed. I was mixed up, and it was not, and then, to end up with the result that I know deep inside me, after listening, observing me, and listening again to people, and reading and assisting to the meetings, okay, that I deeply know that I'm a 4. So that text seems, and the paragraph, half of it was not applying, but there was one, some was like the more no than, okay, so that's
and
that's
exactly. And
valid.
sometimes that's what happens. So what are least like you, and then that leaves the one at the top. Absolutely. I want to say too, Michael Naylor says that really the tests are just help point us in a direction, but is the reading and studying and watching the videos on Surrender School, and it's that as you learn all the nuances, then you'll go, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I am. So yeah, absolutely. And so that ties back to Cindy, what you said is like you just kind of relax into it and let it bubble a little bit. That's all good that happens. I think that's great. All right, let's say the serenity prayer, and then we'll wrap this up.
Thanks for recovering with us.